Hello, welcome to the Always Andy's Mom live stream. We have Gwen today. Hello, Gwen.
Hello. Hello.
So, I was just talking to Gwen about the fact that I have a horrible migraine headache. I've actually had a headache now for 5 days, so it's been
Oh,
really terrible, and it's very bad right now. So, but we can't really put this off because we had it all scheduled, and so this is the first time I've ever tried to do a podcast with a migraine, so we're going to see how it goes. And Gwen, you're going to have to just do along.
okay. All right.
And it's very timely that our topic today is on the physical symptoms of grief because whoa, were my migraines terrible right after Andy died. They were pretty unbearable for a while. So I think it's a good topic to discuss today.
Right. Right. There's so many different ways that we could take this with the physical responses. And I think, maybe just to start off, when you just mentioned that you felt, you had a lot of headaches right after Andy died, that immediately grief brings a physical response. I think, and I've described these before to people. There's so much variety in what they can look like, from very gentle, just a nagging, not feeling well physically, to a violent kind of very physical, very heavy response, whether it be headaches, nausea, heart palpitations, a heaviness. So there's a wide variety of ways that it shows itself. And the counselor in me just wants to explore with you these last 5 days. Has there been something stressful going on? Do you have any change in
You know what? I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Because that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, is that not only is grief so physical and can happen, like I mentioned early on, but then when the calendar comes around those times, the physical responses can come back. And I think to be aware of that in how our body begins to experience a reminder even before it hits the actual calendar. And that happens for people so much.
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Yeah, that they're just not feeling well, that achy, awful feeling. But I think one of the things that I just want to go back to, some of those extreme responses extreme isn't the right word, but just intense. Maybe that's the word.
Yeah, I think that's a better word.
Better word. Is when I train victim advocates or people who are going to be at a scene with someone, that they have to be prepared for some of those intense responses physically, whether it's nausea or, I've actually experienced myself and seen people just violently start throwing up or vomiting when they get bad news. And, we have to be aware.
I know I had horrific chest pain. I really thought I was like having a heart attack right afterwards. I mean, they did an EKG and everything looking to see.
And you talk to way more moms than I do, each week. Where was I going to go with that? That just left me. In the fact that, I know when you said heart palpitations, is that I've talked to a lot of moms who we can feel the pain when our children. Yeah. And so I've heard that many times in the stories relayed through the podcast and talked to me, but I'm sure you have too, that when something happens to our child, we can feel it in our body.
Yeah. Well, and I go back to what my therapist has said to me so many times, because I have a lot of memory loss from the actual accident. But she always says to me, but your body remembers.
Yes.
Your body remembers.
Yeah.
And that is so true, that even things that have been blocked from my mind, my body does remember.
Right. Isn't
Mhm.
there The Body Keeps Score? I think that's a book that I've been meaning to read, and that has a lot to do with trauma too, how the body
Mhm.
remembers when we have those things, but, um, I think, we're gonna be, talking about this too when in a little bit, but that we have to just be really gentle with our bodies in the early parts of grief when we're having those just like, if you take today your headache, you're not necessarily maybe actively grieving today, but some of the steps you would normally take for a headache are rest,
Yeah.
extra hydration. You said you kind of turned down the lights, you've done things. Now, isn't that easier to do when it's just a headache than
Yeah.
if it's I'm grieving?
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
because like, now you just say, "I have a headache," and that's all you have to explain, but when it's other things, then we almost feel like we have to justify that or that we're being weak or something, but we
Yeah.
really, really do need that same rest and care, when we're grieving
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
sure.
I do wanna bring up, Charity's been writing some comments,
Yes.
and I wanna bring these up because I think they're really valuable. So she starts out by saying, "I'm a heart warrior, GM. I lost my 12-year-old daughter 7 years ago in May. 7 years later, my mental emotion has been major to deal with in a negative way. Meds, therapists, and psych still dealing." So, and she talks
Mhm.
about how she vomits almost every day still. So
Mm.
that's really, you know, um, important. I think know that that can continue on and on and on.
Right, right. Um and I see, she talks of having a therapist in one of her other comments, and I think that's really key to talk those things through with someone because the other piece, so it's kind of twofold what I was thinking tonight. So we've already mentioned the physical responses and reactions that happen when we're grieving.
Mhm.
But then we also have, some people call it unresolved grief or suppressed, but I like when Dr. Alan Wolfeld calls it carried grief. We're still carrying that heavy load of grief, and it can come out in a lot of psychosomatic ways, which are
Yeah.
when an emotional pain comes out physically,
Right.
right? Like we can't put words to it, or maybe we haven't learned how to um, verbalize it or let it out in any other way so it comes out in physical responses. But when he talks about carried grief, I remember him describing it as grief that is unacknowledged or unmourned. Is that
Wow.
sometimes we're carrying that because we haven't dealt with it,
Mhm.
and that we need to do that, and that how we do that is by facing it and actually, entering into it rather than running away from it.
Yeah.
Um, but it
Well,
can
and it's just so many physical symptoms can come from your emotional state, and I see that all the time. I mean,
yeah.
I I see kids come in constantly with complaints of tummy pain,
Mhm,
headaches, even
mhm.
chest pain occasionally. And, obviously, I have to go through and try to figure out if there's any underlying medical diagnosis. But a lot of times there isn't. And
Right.
to try to explain to a kid and to the parent that, yeah, your tummy really hurts. And I know it really hurts and it's real pain, but we
Mhm,
need to help your brain be
mm,
able to. That's how you can fix it. I can't fix it by giving you medicine for your tummy because it's nothing that's wrong with your tummy exactly.
right.
That the things are going on in your head. And that's so hard to try to explain without making it seem like and I'm not saying you're making it up, and I'm
Mhm,
not saying you're
mhm.
crazy, and I'm not saying anything because it's real. It's
Right.
real pain.
Mhm. Yeah, feeling sick when there's, medically nothing wrong with you is that, it's real. I mean,
Yeah.
it does happen. Um, but carrying that for years can really have a toll on us physically too.
Mhm.
Um
Well, and I go back to what Charity said about vomiting almost
Yeah,
every day. I mean,
right.
this is still going on and
Yeah.
affecting her body so much. So the
Mhm,
body is just holding all of that.
mhm.
So Michelle just wrote in
Yeah.
too. Now I remember especially more on in my early on in my grief, just having all these aches and just sighing and groaning when getting up from sleeping or moving around. I think my body was always so tensed up. It wasn't sleeping well. It's a
Right.
lot in our bodies.
It is, and it's so interesting because and I just wrote an article for a newspaper, that I after the shootings we had at Michigan State University,
Mhm.
just, a few short weeks ago, and I shared back to when I first started in grief work. I was handed a folder that said grief recovery, and it was typed out on a label. I mean, and as this woman handed it to me, she said, I want you to do a grief recovery class, but by the way, people don't like the word recovery because you never recover from grief. So I had to start researching, what am I going to call this class? What does it look like? And I looked up the word resolve in the dictionary, and one of the definitions of the word resolve means to loosen or relax. And
Oh,
um, grief winds us up. And exactly what Michelle was talking about, that tense, that you're constantly having that pressure and you're carrying that, it does tense us up so much. And so I don't mind the definition of the word resolve because we do
no.
need to loosen and relax and try to figure out how to carry grief in our bodies and to work through it.
That is such a beautiful definition, Gwen. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
brought that up because I have never thought of it that way. You
Mhm.
always think of resolution as it's like coming to an end, that something's coming
Right.
to an end
Mm-mm.
and that you're
No,
resolving it. And that I can't think about my grief resolving and coming to an
no,
end. But
no.
if I think about things loosening, because
Yeah,
honestly, for me, talking about these headaches again,
yeah.
it's my neck. It's
You're where yeah.
so tight.
Mhm.
And before the head starts, it's just I just carry so much tension there
Yeah.
still to this day.
Mhm.
And it's been a hard time. I don't I
Yeah. Well, a lot
obviously.
of memories and a lot of different things going on. Um, there's other definitions to the word resolve. The first one is to analyze the parts of something.
Mhm.
And in resolving our grief, we do need to look at all the little parts. We need to take it apart and look at all the pieces that hurt us. And it's in confronting our pain that actually mellows the pain and removes any reason we have for running from it, right? We need to look at it. Um, so then that's the first definition, is to analyze the parts of something. The second one is to loosen or relax. And the third definition of the word resolve, is in music, to bring from lack of harmony into harmony. When a musical
Oh, right,
piece goes
right.
to resolve, it comes
Oh,
into some kind of harmony. And I
that's a
know
beautiful one too.
I know when I talk to bereaved people, I tell them, you're not going to have the same rhythm. You're not
Mhm,
going to have the same harmony or the tune that your life had before. But can we find the rhythm and the harmony again? And what does that look like? So I don't mind the word resolve at all.
mhm. I like that. I mean, I'm a musical person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I we
Yeah.
are a musical
Obviously.
family, and I obviously sing in church and in our worship band, and
Mhm.
I just think about how so often, you resolve the chord at the
Mhm.
end of something, when you're in a song and it's peaks up and then you have this resolution
Yeah.
and you always want to end on that resolved chord. So that's
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
great image too.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, one of the
So we had
questions
a
from
yeah, go
Charity,
ahead.
yeah, was, how to treat your insomnia. Michelle answered, said she used a faith-based meditation app that has sleep stories I can listen to relax while laying there. I often would have the issue of waking up frequently in the night and sometimes still do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
and
nice response.
mhm. One of my questions about insomnia, or not questions, but, um, there's so much good research now on, when I said the word rhythm, on rhythms of good sleep, and it really starts hours before you go to bed, and I do some of these things too, because if I don't, then I can carry the day's pain of all the stories that I've heard, right? As a grief counselor, I can take all that on and then my sleep would be affected. So I have to start hours beforehand and begin putting my phone down and not dealing with
Yeah.
work or client things and just things that we can do. And even, TV and I love music and meditations and things like that. And I know we're going to be talking to Erin later about yoga,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just some rhythms of, elevating my feet above my head and just, some breathing and doing things physically too to wind down from the day
Yep.
can be very helpful for sleep.
Well, and it's certainly an option to do some medications if you
Yes.
absolutely need to
Mhm.
too. I
Yep.
had to do that for a while because I just could not fall asleep.
Mhm.
I didn't want to do that long term though, because actually if they've done some kind of scans on the brain that study the brain when you're in natural sleep and when you're in sleep that is induced by a medication, and it's not the same. So it's really not as restful of sleep
Mm.
if you have to do some of those sleep medications. Not
Right.
like a melatonin. Melatonin's a more natural way, but some of
Mhm.
the other medications. So it's
Yeah.
but if you can't sleep any other way,
Right.
I certainly did
Yes.
it. I just one of those things that, like, once it started to be a little bit better, I tried to stop that because I knew that my absolute rest and how I would feel afterwards would be better if it was more kind of natural sleep.
Right. And
Mhm.
that's what I tell people. I think for a season, if you need it for a time when your days are so draining that if you're
Yeah,
not getting any refueling during the night, like, you know, um, any kind of sleep we can get
yeah,
can help
right.
us with that.
Exactly, exactly.
Um,
Especially because it just seems so long sometimes, the night,
mhm.
when
You
you
know,
can't sleep. Oh,
the
seems so.
other piece when I think about, whether it's other physical responses and our anxiety and all these things, inside of grief, there's so much we can't control.
Yeah,
Grief is totally out of our control. But if I can control my own rhythms of my own health,
yeah.
my own movement, my own breathing, my own devotion, or whatever, when Michelle mentioned a faith based, I can control all those things. So if I can do those things, then that really does help. And that's sometimes we have to do that because all
Well,
the
and
rest of it.
just going back to the physical too is
Mhm,
I mean, I think I mentioned this on a podcast recently that I really stopped taking care of myself very much in the grief is I mean,
mm,
all this time I just hadn't been taking good care of myself and working out and eating right and all of that
mhm,
kind of stuff, and to the point where I gained like 35 pounds since Annie
mhm,
died. And but a couple of months ago, a little over 2 months ago now, I really started kind of focusing on trying to get back to those
mhm,
healthy habits to see if that has helped. And interestingly, when I've been doing that, my headaches the last 5 days aside had been better. So some of
mhm.
those physical symptoms, and I've been feeling better, but I've been,
Right.
exercising every day and doing all that stuff. And I'm happy to say I'm down 20 pounds from the
Yeah,
35 that I gained. So that was good
yeah.
um, to do that. So overall, just that kind of stuff, taking care of your body a little bit better
So important.
does it,
And
yeah.
I tell
The
people you
last
can
5 days excluded for sure, 'cause the
right.
head has been a mess, but
Yeah.
in general,
Mhm.
it's been helpful.
I tell
Mhm.
people you can look at me and know I'm not the most physically fit person, but what you might not know about me is I have the intellectual ability to know that when other things in my life are out of control, that's when I say, "Hey, at least I can get up and move. I can do these things." I
Yeah.
wish I carried them into when life wasn't so out of my control and kept that balance all the time. But truth be told, when I need to, I have the ability to kick that in and go, "Wait a minute. These are the rhythms that I can work on because all the rest is just so."
Well, and, going back to kind of recently, I'm in a Bible study, and I do my group with my bereaved moms, which is awesome, but I've
Mhm.
also been in a Bible study, and we've been studying the Old Testament, and it's just been wearing on me. I mean, there's just been we have lectures on suffering, all this stuff, and it's just like it just makes me feel worse, honestly.
Mhm.
It's not been good for me because it's very much on it's funny because our gospel lesson this Sunday was when Jesus was asked about the blind man, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?
Mhm.
And Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned. It wasn't the sin that caused the
Mhm.
blindness. And as I've been studying all this Old Testament stuff, I've been realizing I can totally see why they said that.
Mhm.
Because from what we're studying is, all these bad, horrible things happen, and God brings his wrath on the wicked and the evil.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, because of that, it's been just wearing down on me. Like,
Mhm.
I've been feeling more anxious and angry, and to the point where I said to my Bible study leader, like, I don't think I'm coming back this year. I
Mhm.
just don't think I can do it right now. But, it goes back to that tightness and the
Mhm.
whatever,
I
because I've been not doing the right things, and you think studying the Bible would be a good thing, but not always.
No, I have to tell you, I'm so glad to hear you say that because last year I decided to read the Bible 2022 to read the Bible chronologically. And so
Uh-huh.
I got a chronological Bible and reading the Old Testament, I felt the same way. I was an angry little cuss. I was wound up. I didn't make any sense,
Yeah.
and the suffering and some of it was boring, and I didn't feel like it was giving me what I needed. I
Yeah.
was I didn't like me for a while, and
Oh,
someone
I
said, "What's
know.
wrong with you?" And I said, "I'm reading the Old Testament. Have you tried it?" Um, so
Yeah,
I'm
and it's
so glad
funny
to hear
too
you
because
say
then they
that.
had the thing on, like, it was all in the suffering, and then when some of the questions in the Bible study were about, um, getting comfort, and then I was just mad. I was like, "I don't want comfort. I want Andy." I was like, "This
Mhm,
is." I just was mad. I just found myself
mhm,
so angry.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, and so I think your awareness of that is key, and to realize sometimes when physical things are going on and or our moods,
right.
or our, um, edginess or whatever it is to look around and go, "Okay, where is this coming from?"
Well, and the reason I started that story, I have such a headache, I'm getting
That's okay.
distracted. But
That's okay.
back to why I started the story is because they had this lecture and it was all on suffering, and it was the lecturer talked about how this guy had lost his wife died, and um, I don't even know the circumstance of that because I walked in a tiny bit late. And he was a younger man, and he lost his wife, and she had never seen anybody grieving in such deep grief before. And then 4 months later, his son died in a car accident. His
Mm,
young son. Okay, and then she goes on and talks about how that man was sitting next to the pastor 3 months later on Easter Sunday. Okay,
mm,
I mean, good for him, I guess, but
mhm,
it made me feel worse
mhm,
because
mhm,
right? Because now I lost my son, but I didn't also lose my husband, and it was supposed to be so inspiring that this man would just turn to God and be sitting next to the pastor, and all I kept thinking was he still in denial maybe? It's only been
mhm,
7 months? I
mhm.
don't know, but it
Yeah.
made me feel worse. So I left, and my friend was like, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I feel worse." And she goes, "Why do you feel worse?" I said, "'Cause that story was not helpful to me." But what did I do afterwards? Which I could have gone home, gone to bed, and moped, but I went to the Y, and I
Mm,
walked for a mile and a half because I just wanted to get it out, and right, and
mhm.
to do something with my body and move around was the better choice, because
That's
by the
so
time I
good.
got home, then it wasn't feeling quite
Mhm,
as intense
mhm.
as it was at the moment, you
And
know?
you had many other choices, going to Nothing Bundt Cakes, right? I know where it is compared to your house. I mean, you can stop and get a little bunt cake and just drown your sorrows in food. I mean, you could have done so many other things, but the choice that you made was really good for you physically. And
Right.
I think,
And it's
again,
not the choice I would have made even 2 months ago. It's not the
right.
choice I would have made.
Yeah. So you can feel the difference. And it's one of those things that it sounds, I don't want to say cliche, but it's like, oh, yeah, you just tell me if I exercise, I'll feel better. But you really do.
You
You
really do
really
just
do
moving
when
your
you
body a
make
little bit.
good choices and move and do that, and we do feel better when we sleep better, and we do feel better when we're, um, confronting our pain rather than running from it, because I do think some of the exhaustion that people have, and, I think it was Charity who mentioned the flight mode, is when
Yeah.
we're running so hard from
Mhm.
this scary, big, painful thing that has hurt us so much. It's
Yeah,
exhausting.
it
It
is
hurts
exhausting.
so much physically that we
Mhm.
really have to be brave and stop and look at what's chasing us. So we don't
That's
have to
hard to
run
do.
anymore. Yeah, it's hard.
Mhm.
It is, but um, it's really what's needed in order to heal.
Mhm.
And I say that because I believe it, but I know it's not easy to hear.
No, it's not easy to hear.
I know.
But yeah, I felt like at some point in time I have to start taking my own advice because, I tell this to kids all the time and I wasn't listening.
I know. I know. We do that.
I know.
One of the other things, Marcy, that I wanted to bring up that I hear from moms, and I've heard from a couple of the moms who I know listen to the podcast, is that you could be going along in your grief, which is typical of grief in general. Like, it might be bearable for a while, and then all of a sudden something happens and it's completely, flipped upside down. Is that um, I, I think when, let's say, maybe your child's friends are getting married and you're invited to the wedding,
Mhm.
or you run into some of your children's friends, or an event that your child should have been at, or they would have been in that stage of life and they're not. Those things set us back, not
Yeah.
just emotionally, but they can hit us physically. Like,
Mhm.
and someone said to me, why is it that I start trembling when I see my son's friends?
Yeah.
You know, and I said, there's many things in life that make us nervous. If we've
Mhm.
had a conflict with someone and we run into them, or if we've left a church for some reason and then you run into your old church friend, I can think of
Mhm.
many things, an old relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend. There are things that make us nervous because they are unsettled and they are uneasy things. So I think I spend a lot of time normalizing that for people, and for several moms, I've had to just normalize that it can be very much a setback physically when we run into our children's friends, or we have
Mhm.
to go to those events. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah, we've got some nice comments coming in too,
Mhm,
talking about going for walks during lunchtime and getting when I'm upset or angry, I tend to walk faster. Love that
mhm,
one from Demetra.
mhm.
That was great. And then, you know, talking too about gaining weight, though, just feeling like you want to eat something to make you feel better, which is
Yeah.
definitely true. You do that sometimes for
Well,
sure.
I think the other thing it does is we do live a little recklessly. And any of you who have teenagers too, this is a real teenage response to grief, is why bother if life
Yeah,
just stinks anyway? Well, we get that too as
that's what
adults.
I was
It's
totally
like,
like.
yeah,
Eric was
like
telling me I had a soft death wish.
what does it matter?
What's the
Why should I, deny myself the cake, or the extra shopping, or whatever it is that makes you feel good, because everywhere else is pain, and we do tend to try to look for those things that fill us up, and so I definitely get that.
Mhm. Mhm. I know.
Yep,
And, yeah. And
and we
Demetra writes too, "We realize life is
yeah.
short." And
Oh, that's so true.
that is so true. That
Yeah,
is so true. You just kind of live moment to moment in some
yeah,
way. Mhm. Mhm.
yep.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to say before we bring
Um,
Erin on? Because I wanna do that too.
I mean, I don't have to wrap it all up right now, right?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
I do think though that people need to be aware that grieving in and of itself does put us at risk for physical problems, sleep
Mhm.
disturbances that we mentioned. I mean, even things as heart disease and high blood pressure and other really serious medical things that we can be at risk. And so we do always have to seek the care of a physician. I do believe that. I think all bereaved people within 4 months of a death should have a complete physical. It does you good to know that you're physically fit. To get everything checked out.
Mhm.
It's good for your physician to know what you've been through,
Yeah.
and to spend some time teaching them about what you've experienced. So I just want to encourage people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to bring on Erin now and Erin's been on before. Erin's Dakota's mom. So hello, Erin. Here she is. I am excited to get to talk to her today because she's doing something pretty cool
Yeah.
coming in the fall. So she came on to tell us about it. So do you want to talk a little bit, Erin? I think you're still on mute. Let me see. I've unmuted. Oh, I think. Let's see.
I'm unmuted now.
There you go. You're unmuted
Okay.
now.
Well, before we talk about the thing coming up in the fall, my retreat, if I can just help you a little bit with the yoga for grief.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that yoga literally helps to relieve so much of the symptoms, the physical and the emotional symptoms that we as grievers, get. It stimulates the parasympathetic system, which causes us to, you know about obviously the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
and it helps to regulate our breathing. There's so many things. The mindfulness that comes with yoga, it reduces stress. It can release physical tension through stretching and movement, because a lot of the time we're tight when we're in so much pain, where our emotions are all tight and everything. And this is why I absolutely love yin yoga, because you get into a posture and gravity does a lot of the work for you. You just lie there, and if you're in a good posture, gravity can take care of a lot of it for you. I've got a download right now and I just put up a little ebook that you can do, and it's 5 easy poses, and you can do those. So I want to send you that, Marcy. Please, will you do it?
All right.
I'll send it to you too.
Well, and I do want to say too that I have done classes with Erin, because Erin's done little group classes for some of our support group that have just been private, and they've been great and very well received by the other women in the group. That we just feel better after we do that, even when it's just a half an hour. I mean, we don't usually go real long, but it does just make you feel better.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, you can have that spiritual connection. Like, a lot of the time we want to meditate. And if you're in a yoga position, like in yin yoga, you can be in that meditative state and, just be quiet. You can talk to God there if you want to, or focus on your breath, whatever it is, just to calm yourself down. Because that's the things that we've got to do with our yogas. It helps us to calm us down. So
right. I was feeling so miserable today. I came very close, Erin, to just sending you a message and saying, "Hey, I need emergency yoga." But
I wish you had it.
I probably should have.
I would have. Well, even I've got that channel of mine, so you could have just gone there for 10 minutes.
I know.
In fact, I've just done a 10-minute grief yoga session that's there that you can go and do. But yeah. Okay, so coming up in the fall, I have put together a retreat for grieving moms. Hopefully it's going to just be grieving moms. If I don't get enough of a response, I'm going to have to open it up to other grievers. But it's in Puerto Morelos. I've booked a beautiful
in Mexico.
In Mexico, and I've booked a beautiful. It's just a retreat place that they just focus on yoga retreats. But we're not going to just be doing yoga. We'll do yoga once a day. But I've got somebody coming to do sound baths for us, and we've got a breathwork person coming in. And nutrition talk is going to be a lady that does nutrition. She's going to be coming in to talk to us, because the thing is, a lot of the time with grief is that we know we all just eat our emotions. But I've started following her things, and it's just couple of basic things is introducing different probiotics into your diet. So like kefir and sauerkraut. I have those every day. And I don't know, she just says that if we start introducing small things into our lifestyle, it's going to make us feel better. And I don't know, I can just say I'm feeling much better than I was like a year ago. So okay, so we've got her coming in. I've got somebody coming to do yoga nidra, which is a meditative yoga. It's between meditation and sleep, but it's yoga nidra. It's beautiful. sound healing, breath work. I spa, if anybody wants to do that. I did my first one a little while ago. It was fun. And then
I don't know if that would be fun or not. I'm not sure.
Looks painful.
It's
Yeah.
so shocking. It's so shocking. Like I said to him, I feel like swearing now because I'm like so shocked. It's really, we're a block away from the beach, so we've got beautiful beach walks, and that's something else that I advocate for as well. It's like I've got to have my about an hour walk in a day, even if it's 10 minutes up and down, and then relax, and then later on in the day I just do my best to get about an hour in. That's how I always listen to all my podcasts too. So
I don't know. I don't know if you've heard of this, but I did. One of my friends took me here shortly after Andy died to do this float thing in the salt water.
Yes,
Only it's like a totally dark room, and you don't like. That was kind of weird. It was super intense for me because I was really early in the grief.
I remember
and
that.
I just stopped. I mean, just to have. I mean, because you have no input there, right? It's totally dark, and you're just floating in this water, and you can't see a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you done that? Either of you ever done that?
No, I've had two. I've had two friends who have done it, and one absolutely loved it, and the other one hated it. So I think it's an acquired taste.
My girlfriend that I went with really loved it, and I said that was just too intense for me right now.
Yeah,
right. But I didn't know if it might be something that would be good later.
Yeah, maybe retry it.
Yeah, I know. I could retry it.
Erin, with the retreat, what you're talking about, breath work, mindfulness, the yoga, it's a retreat for bereaved moms to get away. But then these are skills that they can take home and do all the time. So the benefits for it are something that they can carry into their everyday life, or is that not a true statement?
No, you know what? They would have to find a breathwork person in their area and a sound healer, because these people are here in Mexico. So it's good if you could find have you ever had a sound healing therapy?
No,
I have no idea.
Okay, so they play these beautiful big crystal balls, and then they just sort of swirl their little gong thing around, and it's just amazing. And the vibrations, how they go through you. You'd have to look for somebody in your area that does that. But what they can take home with them is the yoga. That's definitely, you can take home the yoga. Some of the breath work, definitely you're going to be able to take home.
I would think so. Some of that you have to learn. Right?
The nutrition side of it, that's why I'm bringing, Rita does that. And so I've got her coming in to give us a good talk about it, because it's, if we just start on the small things, it's going to, increase our, how we feel. If we start, I don't know if any of you've watched that movie, Scoots or something like that. It's on Netflix. And my therapist said to me to watch it. And he said the guy's premise is if you start with healing the body, then we move up to the next level. So if we just start on the basics, heal our bodies as much as we can, and then we can go to the next level.
I love that, Erin. Yeah. That is really great to think about. You know what I mean? To try to just focus on what you can focus on, which is the body. Because as much as you kind of try to heal the mind, that takes a long time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
and
if you work on eating a certain way or learning meditative practices, things to make your body feel better, it does end up going to the mind, right?
Yeah, of course. It starts with the body, and then we move in. So but these I've got a beautiful Temescal ceremony planned. Or I've got a woman that we're going to her. She's got a retreat area in the forest, and we're going to do a cacao ceremony there. It's not a lot of the times these plant medicines, it's just cocoa. They call it cacao, and it's a heart opener. So it's just working on our emotions as well. I believe it's going to be transformative, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it because I'm going to be going to do it. I mean, I'm going to be doing it too, but it's just like it's something I've done little bits and little bits and little bits of everything, and it's like, wow, I feel so much better after this. And then now combining it all in 1 week is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's a whole week retreat?
Yeah, it's from the 29th of October to the 4th of November, so 6 nights, 7 days. And I've booked that period especially because it's the Day of the Dead in Mexico. And they, what is so nice is that they've got such a different view on death here. I'm going to put one of the requirements of coming to the retreat is you've got to watch that movie Coco, because
did you see that, Gwen?
No.
The Disney movie Coco?
You've got to watch it. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You have to watch it. It's so good. You will cry though. I mean, it's one of those Disney movies that's a cartoon.
It's a Pixar,
and you think just for kids, but there are so many levels to that movie, and you definitely will cry.
When did it come out?
Oh, maybe. I mean, after Andy died, for sure. I'm thinking maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
About 3 years ago. It's beautiful. It's a Pixar movie.
Okay.
And it's just how they honor their dead people here. So, you know what? And I've just finished reading a book about it because I wanted to understand more about the ceremonies and what everything they're doing. And you set up a little altar for your child, pictures, and it's not you're not worshiping your child, but I've arranged with the retreat center that we're going to have pictures of our kids in the yoga studio so that we can see them. We're going to have little, I'm not allowed to have real candles, but I'm going to get electric candles that we can light. And, it's just we're honoring our children. We're going to be, just working through our grief together. I mean, we're never, ever, I don't think this is ever going to be coming to an end. I think this is going to be an annual retreat for me. But it's just we can get stronger and we can build a community of stronger women.
Right.
Working through our grief.
Take strength to try to get through, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
and
no, go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, like, with that, if I didn't have God on my side with all of this and in my life, then I couldn't have managed. Couldn't have managed. So I always just say thank you, God, every day, and I thank you, Dakota, for helping me with things. And I love your what do you call it, God winks. I love you two when you talk about the God winks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gwen, you were going to say?
No, I was just going to ask if you will make available a link not only to the retreat, but then just even the video you mentioned, or you have a few-minute grief yoga to walk them through. Is that what you said?
Oh, it's a little ebook download. Yeah. A mini ebook.
But it's from your website.
Okay, so we want to make sure that they have that.
Yeah.
Okay, but hang on a second. Sorry, I don't know how to. I haven't figured it out how to do the download. So what I have to do is I have to email it to you because I don't know how. You know what? I'm still technical on this. Technology is still beyond me with some things. And so,
you and me both, honey. You and me both. Yeah.
I work in my capabilities. If you give me your email address, I can send it to you. Or I can
Well,
put it
and
in
the website,
Instagram.
and you can yoga with Erin B.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that your website, yogawitherinb.com?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so she's an easy one to find, actually. So going through on social media, yoga with Erin B, all of that. So that's how to find out about her. And, Erin has also graciously offered to give a little discount,
5%. Yeah,
5% discount to anyone who mentions the podcast that got them there. So I think that's great for the listeners to get a little 5% off on this.
That's wonderful.
And if you book before the end of March, then I'm including 2 bonus massages. So yeah, and you know what? Because I've just come back from a retreat. Well, at the place where I'm holding the retreat, Casa Om. It's beautiful. And I had a massage with this lady, and she was so amazing because I've always said, I'm doing this to, for Dakota. I'm doing everything for Dakota. And this woman said to me, this is unusual. She said, I've got a message for you from your daughter. It's like, she's not even a reader or a psychic or anything. And she just, I've got a message from your daughter. And she says, you got to do this for you. Do your business for you, not for her. You can do it to honor her, but you got to do it because it makes you happy. And I was like, I was taken back, and I thought, my goodness, And then, this makes me happy. This makes me happy, and I like to be able to share this because I feel I've been so healed with everything that's been put in my path. Can share it now.
It's wonderful. I'm wondering how many of the listeners are going to add this now maybe to their birthday wish list, or instead of, they might start collecting pop cans or doing some kind of fundraiser to get themselves to be able to go on this retreat, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I wish I could pay for everyone, but darn money. I hate that money has to come into things.
Yeah.
And because
but obviously
the
you have to pay for all those people, so you can't.
Right.
When I'm a millionaire.
What?
Yeah, when I'm a millionaire, then I can.
Right. When you're a millionaire, then you're going to do these for free. Okay, we got it. We got it, Erin.
Yeah, my poor husband, he can't afford to pay for everyone, so.
And if listening to Erin, if you didn't listen to her original episode, I forgot to look up what number it is. Do you remember?
No.
Which number you were on? No, I don't know. But anyway, it's Dakota's mom. But you will notice her accent. She does not sound Mexican. She is not. She is South African. But does she live in South Africa permanently? No. She lives in Canada. So this is a very kind of crazy. She's a very international woman. So she's got her South African heritage, but she lives on the west coast of Canada most of the time, right? In British Columbia, except in the winter, where she winters all winter in Mexico, which is pretty fabulous. So that's why she's going to be able to do this retreat there in Mexico. So
that's amazing.
And the nice thing is that I feel so safe here. Like I just, I can walk to and from yoga. I go to the studio. I can finish my yoga at about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and I can walk home, and it's dark and it's safe. And because I know people are always so concerned about the safety in Mexico, and it's like, okay, I think the newspapers blow things up, or it's different parts. But you know what? I think if you what you expose yourself to, if you're going to be into drugs or drinking or things like that, you're opening yourself up anyway. So I'm to and from my yoga. I can cycle around here safely. It's good. Beach walk, beautiful.
That's a good thing to bring up too, for sure.
Yeah,
it has been an issue in lots of areas of Mexico.
Yes, and even like right here in Playa, apparently there were some shootings and that, but we don't go to the party areas of town, so I suppose you people drinking, drugs, and guns and things are going to happen anywhere. But so I think this is a good retreat for us, moms. And then I've like I said, the cenotes are going to be fun. There's a zip line that we can all try. It can't just all be spiritual and emotional healing. We've got to do something fun. So there's a zip line included as well, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, that will be fun. I think it will be great, Erin. I do.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up a comment that was written in here a while back, and I don't want to ignore that. So, do you want to read that, Gwen?
Which we had two come in, and I think we'll address Carolyn's first.
Sure.
Who talks about couldn't eat, which is very true, and then all of a sudden eating too much. Now, after 4 years, able to control, eating healthier, exercising, sleeping better, and even though there's tough days, what I hear here is she has regained a little bit of that balance, right? And she's working on what she can control. So those were some great comments by her. But I want to address what Paula wrote, because it's only been a few short weeks since her son died. And I know. And she talks about, she says, I feel I should. And I just want to
Yes.
caution her not to should on herself.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, don't
To
waste
that
Don't shit on
wanting to
yourself. Yes.
be more physically outward with her emotions. Right now, Paula, you're probably very numb. And
Yeah.
mention going to the grocery store, and that's emotional. But I just want to just say that you don't necessarily have to be overly physical or over emotional either to get grief
No.
right. It's
No.
how you let it out. Some people, it's more about movement. It's more about, some people, it's art or writing, those kinds of things. So I don't want her to think that she's doing it wrong, and to caution her that she's so fresh into this, right?
Well, and just because she's that way now at 4 weeks, it might
Right.
be completely different in 2
Yeah.
weeks and then completely different again another 2 weeks after that.
Right.
It's just changes so much.
Hmm. Very much so. So, um,
Ooh.
we go through many,
Oh,
many things. Yeah.
yeah.
I think one of the things when you asked me before if there was anything else I wanted to say, and after listening to Erin talk about having, a retreat that has fun and it has many different components to it. And she mentioned, we talked about spiritual, and we've talked about nutrition and movement, and we talked about our emotional health. I think that's a key thing, is to realize that we are a whole person.
Yeah.
And we can't neglect any part of ourselves. But I don't want our listeners to feel this pressure that every day they have to get up and get all those components right every single
No.
time, because it's too much pressure for us when we're hurting. And so I would just caution you, or maybe just suggest that if there's an area right now that you can concentrate on, or you need to, maybe it is physically for you, maybe for someone else it's spiritually, that they really need to look at their spiritual side. You know, I often say I do my devotions every day. That part of me is like a well-oiled machine, but I have to work very hard at adding the physical part to my day. But I just don't want our moms to feel this pressure that they have to get every single one of those right all
No.
the time.
No.
And so
Just
just pick one
too
thing.
much. Yeah.
It
One
is.
thing.
Just do one thing good for yourself each day. And one day it might be a devotion, and the next day it might be movement, and the next day it might be something else. So that's really what I wanted to leave them with, just picking one thing.
Yeah. I talk to patients about that all the time too, about
Yeah.
you don't try to change everything. When you try to change
Yeah.
everything, it's just too overwhelming. You just change
Right.
one thing at a time.
Yeah. Because everything can seem overwhelming. That's what,
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Michelle
and I
wrote
follow
that
this
too.
author, and he says, it's interesting. Anything in life that we're going to do, it's not a switch. And being someone who's dealt with being overweight my whole life, I often think that one day I'm going to wake up and all of a sudden love kale, that I'm going to flip a switch and I'm going to go, yes, I'm going to just eat everything green. It's not like that. He describes it more as a dial. And instead of a switch, what you have to think about is life is a dial. And some days you have to dial down on the things that are bad for you and dial up a little bit on the things that are good. So it's a little slower. It's not like we're going to flip a switch and get it all right tomorrow.
So I do have to tell you, this is just a funny story now, that I have an organic farm share, so we get farm vegetables every week. It's actually pretty great, and it's year round even, so it's wonderful. But so I make stir fry a lot with a lot of these kind of more unusual vegetables or whatever, and I always put kale in it, always. And that is Peter says that's his favorite vegetable is kale,
Really?
because it soaks up all the sauce when I make this. Have the sauce in it. He's like, you can't even really taste it. It just tastes like the sauce. So he always wants me to have as much kale in it as possible. So Gwen, that's what you need to do with your kale.
Well, the first thing I thought of is, doesn't
the flavor of it,
doesn't
and then you
Peter
get the
know?
nutritional value. What?
Doesn't Peter know how much it just sticks in your teeth too? Because I tried putting kale in my smoothies, and then it's always in your, you can feel that kale in your mouth. Oh,
I've got kale in my fridge every day. We just picked up my farm share today. I've got a whole new beautiful thing of kale. I gotta
That's
make you
where
some of my. I have this sausage potato kale soup that I make. I have to make you that soup. It's really
sounds
good.
terrible.
No, it's fantastic.
I was
It's
just
really
gonna
good
say
soup.
that's where our friendship, like we have so many things in common, but
No, I'm making you the soup. I'm making
Okay.
you the soup. It's good.
That's funny. But
All
yeah,
right.
if
Well,
we can
thank you,
just
ladies. My head's
yeah,
starting to feel a little better. Can you tell?
good.
I'm not.
Yes,
I'm
and
not.
I was going to tell you because for years I was a chronic migraine sufferer. I had migraines, and there were many times I'd have to give a presentation or talk during it. It was amazing how after I got into the rhythm, when you're doing something you're passionate about, and you obviously, Marcy, this is your passion, that we do begin to feel better. And so I was going to say that to you at the beginning, but I thought I'd just wait and see if just
Yeah,
being around you.
I'm much better than I was. I'm
Yeah.
not great, but
No.
honestly, when we started, I was thinking to myself, I may have to leave and go be sick.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
was so nauseated. I thought I'm going to throw up in the middle,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to let Erin in and leave and let you guys just go.
Yeah.
But turns out,
Look at it. Yeah.
God was on my side a little bit,
Right.
gave me some
Yes.
reprieve from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
nausea. And so
Yeah, lovely.
thank you to both of you.
I
Okay,
just
go ahead.
can I
Sorry.
close with this that
Yeah.
it wasn't our president Harry Truman, it was Harold Truman. He was a civil rights leader, and he said, find what makes you come alive and go and do that, because the world needs more people who have come alive. And that's why I know that you are in a place, Marcy, where you are doing things, because this podcast makes you come alive. And
Yeah.
just even tonight just shows how it even made you feel better. So
Yeah.
we're glad you're doing it.
Yes,
Well, and
yes.
I love that example because yoga makes Erin come alive.
Right.
Yeah.
I've now known Erin long enough to
Mhm.
know that it really does. And
Yeah.
her sharing that with other people and teaching our little group as she did, I mean,
Aw.
that brings a lot to her,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a great gift to be
Well,
able to give to other people.
let me ask this. I was sitting here thinking, what if there's some listeners who gather with a group of bereaved moms? Erin, is it ever a time where virtually they could have you lead them in something? Like if they can't go to Mexico to a retreat, can they
Yes.
hire you to lead them in some grief yoga?
Yes, I'm starting. Okay, so on my website is Grief Yoga. You can just get on the wait list. I have been putting this off for a while, and I'm starting it again towards the end of April. I'm just looking at my dates. I'm going to be doing a 6-week section
good.
of yoga. So yes, definitely get on
Okay.
the wait list there. And then I've got like a TV that I'm going to be putting up, and I can only, at maximum they've said is 10 people, so I can see everybody on the screen.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that I can.
Really beautiful. Obviously, I've never met Erin in person, but I've done yoga with her
Oh,
several
that's
times. It's always been
awesome.
virtual.
I
and
love
it,
that.
It has been very, very healing and very good. So
It's
All
my
right.
gift, hey. I love it. I love it. And
That's awesome.
considering
it is your
I thought
gift.
for the,
It is your gift.
thank you, God, because I thought for the longest time it was such a struggle. I've told you, Marcy, that it was a struggle. If God, our church wasn't into the yoga, don't you do yoga? So I left the church, because it's just like, I'm not doing heroin. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing other bad things. I'm not robbing banks. I'm doing yoga.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that always has blown me away that your church was like against the yoga, but had you become an alcoholic, they wouldn't have kicked you out.
Right.
And
That's
not
crazy.
kicked you
Yeah.
out. They didn't kick you out, but they did make you feel like you were doing something that you shouldn't be doing, which is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
my
All
gift
right.
is
Well,
there.
thank you
Okay.
again, ladies.
I know
so
we
much.
have to
Thank you
end
so
to
much.
keep on our time frame. So
All right. Bye bye.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.